Trapped by the belief that I'm not good enough, bound by the limitations and the lies that consumed my world, this was me. It wasn't until I took the biggest leap in my life to know and trust the power within. And it was at that moment I made a choice. My past will not define me anymore. Hello, I am Teri, and I know I am not alone in this. Over the years, I have found that the number one mistake that we make is that we get in the way of our own success story. Yes, I said it. On this show, together we'll tackle limiting beliefs, self-sabotage, getting stuck, fear, doubt, overwhelm, and the imposter syndrome. Join us on this journey designed to transport you beyond your limitations to a world where anything is possible. This is Talking with Teri. Welcome back to Talking with Teri, where we have powerful conversations to transform your life and your business. And I'm delighted to have our guest, Maggie Karshner, here today. She's a self-employment coach, which I'm just intrigued by this, serving solopreneurs. So Maggie, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about you. Bring us up to speed. How did you get to where you're at today and all the juiciness in the between?
Oh, yeah. So I've been a self-employment coach for about, I think, 7 years now. And I got here through a fair amount of trial and error, which, I think we all have.
As we all do, right?
Yeah, right. I think the fascinating part about the story to how I ended up starting my business is that I was wanting to do this work years, like 3 years before I actually ended up doing it. And then sort of went through this chain of jobs. It was like, here's the best possible job for me. And then, that didn't work out. Okay, hold on, wait, here's the best possible career for me. And I kept sort of going through them. And I finally had sort of hit this place where I was doing management consulting and I was getting to utilize all the skills and talents that I have. And it was mid-sized companies. They're kind of like steering an ocean liner. Like it just takes months and months to for anything to be put into action. And it was really slowing me down. And I was like, man, I want to work with people one-on-one, like the actual business owner. I don't want to have to worry about employees and big budgets. No, just let's make your income. Let's make that part happen. And I had been actually sort of doing this on the side, coaching with a couple friends who were self-employed. And so I sort of had this realization and I took it to my best friend and I told her about it. And she was like, oh, you're finally coming back to that now. I was like, thanks.
Yes. Because sometimes success in our path is not A to B. Sometimes it's A to H, P, Q, L, 9, purple, pink, B.
And then we get there.
Right. I get it. Well, and I think I always talk to people about the tweaking process, right? So, sometimes we require to go into these other jobs or other situations to learn a skill, to learn how to deal with XYZ people or whatever that might be. And then we're like, okay, got it. And then you go to something else. And it's this constant tweaking process that we go through. And then during that process, there's so much awareness and insights that are being downloaded into us that it's and then when you know. So yeah. It's all the process, right? The muddy middle, right? So we're right there with you, sister.
Yeah, I know. And I think a lot of it actually boils down to confidence. In my personal story, it was that having someone hire me in a role that was titled management consultant and being like, okay, I have a title. I had done plenty of stuff that I could discredit a little bit easier. And so getting that job title was huge for my brain. And then realizing it wasn't what I cracked it up to be, that was just, it was okay, so now I've achieved sort of the holy grail, the sky's the limit. I can go invent a job title for myself. Sure.
Perfect. I love it. So anyone right now that's listening that says, gosh, can I do this? Am I capable of doing this? Yes, you are. But I do think you're right. I was literally today, I was doing this speed mentoring, which was amazing. So there was 11 of us mentors, and then we had mentees that were coming to our tables, and every 7 minutes they would rotate. So we had 3 mentees, and what came over and over up in these conversations were around confidence. Confidence was such a hot button for a lot of people, and in this industry, in the entrepreneur world. So I agree with you. Like that confidence is one of those big things. So let me ask you that, let me ask you this. What has been your biggest like challenge, barrier, or block to overcome in this journey for you?
Yeah. So I think the big challenge for me, so I had started a business prior to this one. I had been already coaching people on the side. I have a mom who was an entrepreneur herself. So she raised me with like great amounts of business knowledge. So I came into this with a whole lot of skills and knowledge and stuff like that, that I think a lot of folks don't have. So in a lot of ways, I knew what to expect. And even in that situation, there was a lot of like, hold on, wait, this is what this is like? Like, progress is never linear, right? So,
Right.
the first few years you're in business, heck, to this day that you're in business, right? You're kind of going like this. Your clients and your profits are all like all over the place. And it's like, yeah, no, I knew this was happening. I knew this was going to happen. I knew this. Why are we still doing this?
Agreed. And throw in a couple pandemics and
Oh
little
God,
like,
yeah.
little curveballs. I mean, and you know what? I will say this: anyone who's in business and that have been in business prior pandemic, or sometimes this was the thing that made you go into business, right? There's always going to be, quote, a pandemic of some sort every 5 to 10 years in your business, whether it's a personal pandemic of like change and transformation, or it's a outside thing, or we're calling it, there is always going to be something that is there. And it's not, it's part of business ownership, right? Like it is, I can't believe I'm going to admit this. I'm going to admit this on air. So when I was when I was becoming an entrepreneur, I said, well, especially actually, really when I transitioned over from all contracts to all employees, different game. It was a different game, different, a little bit of. Again, there's more skin in the game for me, obviously more skin in the game for my employees, but changing it over to all employees. And I can't believe that I'm going to admit this, but I had said, well, once I get every position hired, right, we'll just coast, like, because people are going to stay with me for 45 years. And you're laughing because that's not really reality. And so I'm like, oh, this will be really easy. Well, I'll bring on all these people. They're all going to stay. We're going to be glorious. It's going to be amazing. And that's not what happened. And it was just really, it was like, that was like the thing that crushed my hopes and dreams. I'm like, what? And I was like, what? Like people don't stay in to the same company and stay loyal for 100 years. And there's changeover and there's constantly things that moving parts, and like you think you're going to go this way and you're going to go that way instead. And you're like, wait. It was really a funny moment for me, because I was just, and now I look back and I laugh because I was so naive and like going from contractors to employees and stuff like that. But it really was one of those things that was like, okay, business is, everything is energy, everything moves, everything's in change, everything's in motion. And so, it's naive of us to think that things are going to stay same or
Yeah.
ongoing,
And
even if you have a great team, like even your team, there's changes, there's growth, there's to expect the things to stay the same, or not to have like these little dips or things that we don't expect.
yeah. And there's only so much that we can prepare for. Like, I
Yeah.
think that was what I'm hearing in your story, and what also
Yeah.
I know from my own story is that like we can psychologically prepare for something, and then we have to be present in the moment and present with what's going on and be flexible. And so like continuing to have drive while also having flexibility, like that's sort of one of those key skill sets that if you don't have it now, you're going to learn it when you're an entrepreneur and you're going to keep being challenged to get better at it.
Yes. Yes. Our weaknesses will be shown to us in more ways than one. And we either outsource, which is what I recommend, or we try to kind of, fill in until we get that right person in there. But yes, I agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I work with people who are self-employed. So they tend not to be outsourcing a whole lot. Like bookkeeping is a real favorite for folks. But like when you're the only person in your business and you're always going to be the only person in your business, like your gremlins are like right up here with you. Like you can't point the finger at, well, it's because of that coworker, or it's because that my assistant isn't doing her job. Like, no, if it's just you, it's you and your
Ownership
team.
is you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. And solopreneurship is, I think that's a topic that we don't talk about very often um, because I think at some point solopreneurs do make the leap of faith and go and choose to expand their team so that they have more flexibility, right? So that they can outsource, some of those tasks that they don't feel like they, I think in the entrepreneur world, we think that we're the jack of all trades, and we can be, and we can do a pretty decent job, but sometimes I think it just becomes too much, right? Because we're trying to wear at least five, if not eight hats, and that's like realistically, I mean, you're talking about like all aspects of the business. It becomes challenging. So
Yeah. And it isn't like it. So a lot of my folks were doing some kind of hourly billing for service, if not literally that, then like in equivalencies, right? There
right.
isn't a whole lot of economy of time that you can build into it. So we we look at that, if I have a billable rate of 249, then is it worth me spending an hour banging my head against my QuickBooks to try to get it to work?
Exactly.
Or do I go outsource it to someone who will do that a million times faster than me?
Yes. And for usually a lot less,
Yeah, a lot less than 249 an hour, right?
Yeah. And that's a great exercise. I mean, because we're on the topic of it, for any solopreneurs that are out there, or even entrepreneurs that have one or two, whether that's a virtual assistant, a contractor, or an employee, or multiple employees, look at the things that are consuming your time. And can that be outsourced? And can it be outsourced to somebody that can do it better, that they get so much joy for doing it, right? Like they get filled up because they're like, oh my gosh, I'm in my zone of genius and this is my jam. And they are excited about QuickBooks. I mean, there are people out there that like it. Like I'm telling you. And and I feel like we are doing a disservice not filling up their buckets. Okay. So do the right thing. Don't be selfish. Okay. Don't keep it all to yourself. There are people that love it and they get excited about it and they want to talk about numbers and they want to talk about whatever it is, right? We're picking on QuickBooks and accounting because that's just where
so
most
common.
people, I know it's so common, right? But the other aspects, like I didn't care for like the office management piece of it, like the comings and goings of an office or whatever. So it can be lots of different things, but like, what are the things that you spend time with? And here's a good indicator. If you go, do I have to? That's usually a good indicator that's not meant to be in your zone of genius. And if you were like me and you wait 3 months to do it, okay, that's another big indicator. And then you have to do 3 months at a time. And you're like, why did
Oh yeah, no.
And then you tell yourself you're not going to ever do that again. And you lie to yourself and you know that you're going to avoid it for 3 more months and do it. That's when you outsource, right?
Oh yeah, totally. And I would even take that a step further and say, like, are there clients or projects that you're taking on that you get that same feeling about? Because if you're doing that, then you're working with people you don't want to be working with.
Agreed.
Right? It's time to fire that client, because the zone of genius you're talking about, right? Like, we are not an island. We don't have to do it all ourselves. It is our responsibility to tell someone, I don't actually want to do your work, so you should go find someone who does.
Well, let me ask you that, because I think a lot of people get hangups about this. When we talk about firing a client, it's like, oh, what? Okay, so when you encourage your clients, if that comes up, and it doesn't come up often, it doesn't, it is one of those kind of things. It's like, you should fire a client, right? So what tips, tricks, do you have in those conversations with your clients about like how to do that and kind of walk them through that process? Because I think my experience has been people go into scarcity and they're like, well, if I don't see this client, that means that's X amount. Like maybe it's once a monthly retainer, or maybe it's $1,000 a week, maybe it's $1,000 a month, but it can be a percentage depending on how much of their income is based on that client. Like, what do you recommend? Like, I have a client right now, her clients, she charges are 50 to 100,000. So she loses one client. I mean, that's kind of a chunk of change, right? So, like, walk us through that process, or what would you share with that?
Yeah. So I think the first thing to keep in mind is that you have to have space for something in order for a new thing to step into your life. So when you've got a client who you're not excited to work with, they are taking up more than their share of your mental space.
Yeah.
So if you have a client who is taking up more of your mental space than they ought to be, then you've got to reclaim that space. Like, you could fill 2 clients with that space, even if they are a $100,000 client. So keeping that in mind, that you need to clear that space in order to have new clients come in. I think you're right that sometimes people are like, let me get a couple more clients and then I can quit this one. And like, you're overworking yourself if you're doing that. Like, you actually need to cut the ties and then get the new clients. And sure, there'll be a little bit of a gap moment, but that's okay.
And what I have found, once you let go of that, because they bring about, like, from an energetic perspective, they bring about a negative energy.
Yeah.
And every time you think about that client, every time you think about meeting with that client, you're like, ugh. And from a vibrational standpoint, that drops you on the vibrational scale. And so you cannot be generative and creative and be in a place of abundance if you're going. So
Yeah.
cut the ties, right? Walk away and you will be filled back up. And oftentimes, if you can shift it, you're going to fill it back with amazing people. So I love that advice. I love cut it first, because you're right. Because I think so often I see people going and wanting to get 2 or 3 more clients to make up for that client. It's like, no, just do it. And I think this is a part about, like, this is like a faith challenge, right? Like, faith in yourself, faith in, God, spirit, angels, whatever you want to call it, whatever resonates with you. But it's like having that moment of like, okay, I'm going to be taken care of,
Yeah. I like to say that starting a business is a never ending series of trust falls.
It's true. It's
right?
true.
You always have that moment of like, are they going to catch
Yes.
me? And the thing is that
I haven't, like, there's been a lot of times I've taken those leaps of faith and I haven't yet, knock on wood, but I haven't yet been dropped.
Yeah, likewise. Because it isn't, I mean, because we have good communities around us, we have been doing good work of being, hopefully, I assume, dear listeners, that you are, being a good person, collecting good people around you, and that you have a lot of gumption and ability to pick yourself up should something actually knock you down. That, yeah, go do it. Go. Do it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So what has been, I guess, maybe what's been some important lessons for you that you've learned along your path?
Yeah. So one lesson that I'll talk about is that marketing is like it's like a flywheel. I think that's the most accurate thing, but nobody knows what a flywheel is, including myself. I had to like look it up. Basically, it's something that you pour energy into and it's going to keep going regardless of if you're continuing to pour energy into it.
Yeah.
And I learned this. I had a crisis moment in my business. This was actually pre-pandemic, and realized one month that I was not going to be able to, I was going to barely be able to pay my office rent, much less like pay myself. And that was I was years into business and I was like, hold on, wait a second. This hasn't happened since like my first year in business. What happened? Oh crap. And I had quite the moment with myself and freaked out a bunch. And then, sort of got down to work and reactivated my marketing engine because I had let it languish for too long, and it picked right back up. And I was out of that hole within a couple months. So knowing that whatever crisis comes along, that if you're doing your good work and you're staying the course and you're continuing to put the right energy out there, putting out your message, that will come back. And that helped me navigate, like when my father passed away a few years ago, I was like, this is fine. Like, I can leave my business and have some grief time and not need to worry about it because I have seen this work.
Yeah, I love that. I love the flywheel piece. decades ago, I wrote an article about like entrepreneurship and the Flywheel from
Yeah.
Colorado Business Magazines. And I think you guys can still go find that article. It's like forever old again, but you're right. I think sometimes I've seen it too far often happen where we keep going in this path and then we don't see the results as quickly as we would like.
Mm-hmm.
And then we jump ship and then we go to something else and then we do the exact same pattern and behavior and we can never really fully gain traction because we're jumping ship too fast, and I think that the book 3 Feet from Gold, and I think that's a beautiful story if you've not heard about it. Essentially some of these folks, I forget the name of the family that came out, and they were digging for gold in Colorado, and the guy just got so frustrated. He was doing this for months at a time and got so frustrated he stopped. And then the next person that took over the what do you call the mine or whatever you call it, the zoning area or whatever, 3 feet, and they struck probably one of the most massive gold in history, and so
Yeah.
don't give up too early. And I think that's just a great words of wisdom there is like, again, continuing on that path and being consistent, because the more consistent we can be, we're still putting the energy in it to continue to let it grow and thrive, because it really does. It's a process to grow your company.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is, I love about entrepreneurship compared to mining. I love that, with mining, you have to go find like the vein, you have to find the stash of it, right? The stash of gold is inside of ourselves. So it isn't something that you have to go outside and look for. If you've made an offering to the internet, the world, the marketplace, whatever, and they're not picking it up, that isn't a reflection on you doing something wrong. Like
Right.
that's a reason to go deeper into yourself and say, okay, is this actually the unique thing that I have to offer the world? Is this the thing that I am meant to be doing? Or do I need to hone in more clearly on that?
Yeah. I love that. So as we kind of wrap up here today, such good stuff. What other, besides what we've already talked about and shared about, what are some other yummy nuggets that you can share with the listeners, or something that is an actionable item that they can leave with, either thinking about doing, practicing, playing with, that can leave them with?
Yeah. So this might be bigger than a nugget, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Dang
So,
it, man, we're going gold mining
yeah,
today.
gold mining. So
Gold today.
the thing I want everybody to know and to believe, because I believe this. So I think that our society is necessitates, like, human civilization only works if we are all showing up with our own uniqueness. So it isn't a matter of I got to fit in to be like the Joneses or whatever storyline you've got going. It's a matter of I need, you need to be the best you, I need to be the best me, and we are both needed for society. So I need you and anyone who's listening to this to be the best you. So you got to figure that out, because I can't. And you got to go make that happen in the world. And you can't shrink back and say, oh, well, I'll just be a job title because that's what I can know I get a job at. Like, sure, maybe that's a just now thing, but like, I need you to be you. So like, let's make that happen. And that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right. Like, that is a big gold nugget. It's like stepping in our power and really fully owning it and not shying away from it. Because I think it's so easy to get stuck in that storyline that I'm not enough, that I'm not good enough, or who am I, or all of those types of negative storylines that we can get ourselves trapped in. And I'll tell you, some of them are juicy, like they are good. Okay. But that is the work that we get to do on this planet. And as you are so heartfelt and excited about, and I am right there with you, sister, is that, and I'm telling people, I'm kind of in a similar message, because I'm telling people, like, we need, require, expect, ask, we need people to step up into their power, because the world needs light. The world needs brilliance. The world needs, newness, because if the pandemic has not taught us anything except for the fact that there were some things that were working really, really well in our systems, and then there were some things that weren't working really, really well. And some of those things need to be changed, altered, shifted, transformed.
And that is the work of the people that feel called to do so and be like, how do I show up and do this? How do I help with this? How do I, and we all know that there's something innately in us that we're like, that's like talking to us and it's saying, okay, go. Like, don't dismiss that voice, because that voice is telling you some juiciness that wants to get out there. And I agree with you. Like we need people stepping into their power, and whatever that might look like. And it might be scary. And I should say, and it will be scary. And you may pee your pants along the way. It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. And then we keep going.
I'll be there for you.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. What a brilliant message. What a great way to wrap up. So where can people find more about you and how can they connect with you?
Yeah, I am at maggiekarshner.com, and that's my handle on pretty much every social media, Maggie Karshner. I keep it simple.
Perfect. So we'll put all that information into the show notes. So go connect with her, go, pick her brain, go connect in any way that resonates with you. Maggie, it was a delight. We're just we have to stay in touch. This was fantastic.
Of course.
All right. Well, I wish you all the best. Thank you for being you. And thank you for sending the message, because we need more people like you sending that message. And if that is you and you're like, gosh, I want to do what Maggie does, there's space for you. Okay.
There is.
There's absolutely space for you. And so join us. Because there's an abundance. There's an abundance of people that you are here to serve. And thank you for doing the work you do, because when you do the work that you do, you give permission for others to do the same. And so we appreciate you. And thank you for, being that bright, shining light.
I am so grateful that you joined me for this episode. If you've enjoyed this, then there's just one thing that I would like you to do. Click to subscribe and leave me a rating and review. As my way to thank you, let's connect for a free consultation. Just reach out to me at talkingwithteri, that's TERI.com, to book your time.